Hi again, everybody. I am here back today, as promised, to talk more about my books. So today I'm going to be talking about my first published novel, Wander Among Shadows. So I actually started writing the first draft of this book when I was 12 years old. I got really inspired by The Crucible. I was watching the '96 film over and over again, and then I decided to write my own novel, mostly because I had actually been interested in the Salem witch trials since I was about 7 or 8. We did see the 2003 movie, I think it was, or 2002 movie with Kirstie Alley, and then we went to Salem the following fall around sometime in October near Halloween, and we thought it was really cool, and I've been interested in the Salem witch trials ever since, so I decided to write my own novel. I put it down for about 10 years after writing the first draft, and then after I got laid off from a really bad job, I picked it up again and then had it published at the beginning of 2021. So just to give you a brief overview, I did write about a real-life family that was involved in the witch trials, the Parker family of Andover. Andover is a town that is northwest of Salem that kind of had their own little witch outbreak as well in 1692. So my main character is Sarah Parker. She was 22 at the time of the trials. When finding a family to write about, I did want to find a main character that was a female around 18 years old. So I found Sarah, and it actually kind of ended up being a gold mine for me in terms of writing and having a story to talk about. There's a lot of information there, a lot that was also missing, which the historian in me found very frustrating. I don't actually know Sarah's ending. After the witch trial, she kind of disappears, so there's not a lot for me to go on. But what I can tell you is that in terms of the story that I wrote, so what I have Sarah doing at the beginning of the year, she just turns 22, she's trying just to look for a husband and basically become your typical Puritan housewife. But then the witch accusations start in Salem, and then eventually they come and make their way to Andover, and it hits a little bit too close to home when her own mother Mary is accused of witchcraft. So we see the toll that the witch trials not only take on the town of Andover itself, but also this family, and how it affected them forever after the trials happened. So I did a lot of research into this family. I tried to make it as accurate as possible. Of course, I did play a little bit with the timeline in regards to what happens to Sarah. I don't want to go too in-depth with it because I might do another video about the Parkers themselves as well as the witch trials in Andover. I also don't want to give away too many spoilers, so I'll just say some things go down. But I did try to keep it true to the facts and stick to how accurate it was. Of course, some things I did change up just to make it a more nuanced story. But overall, I would say it's pretty accurate in terms of what happened to them. So something else I wanted to talk about with the novel is mental illness. I did include that in the novel when I rewrote it in 2019 because I was actually suffering from depression. So in that dark place there did come inspiration, and I was able to turn a negative situation into a positive in that way. But I had to do a lot of research about what mental illness looked like in 1600s America to try to make it seem more accurate and authentic. So in the 1600s, the Puritans were beginning to realize that the brain controlled emotions as well as cognitive and motor functions. They still believed in the four humors theory, but they were also starting to see that the brain had a part to play as well in your behavior. So they did recognize that neurological disorders were separate from mental illness. They didn't distinguish between the types of mental illness like we do today. The only one that they really gave a name to was melancholy, which is very much in line with depression for us today. And it did include the normal symptoms like loss of interest, sadness, but it also included some broader symptoms like hallucinations and delusions, which today would be more in line with schizophrenia. They also attributed physical as well as spiritual causes to mental illness. So the physical causes could be injuries as well as both physical and emotional trauma. They recognized abuse as well could be a cause of mental illness. But because these are Puritans we're talking about, they also believe that the cause of mental illness could be spiritual as well. So they thought if you were sinful, this could be your punishment from God, or if you didn't have enough faith, that could also be the reason why you were suffering from mental illness. So if they thought that the cause was physical, they would cure it by making you do hard labor, for example, just to keep your mind off of it. They could change your diet, give you purgatives, do bloodletting or herbal mixtures. However, if they thought that it was a spiritual cause, they might make you pray or fast or just show general repentance for what you had done. Now, sometimes mental illness could be correlated with witchcraft. It wasn't always, but it could be. So yes, sometimes if you were mentally ill, people might take that as you being a witch or perhaps possessed by the devil. But sometimes it could actually save you being mentally ill. There was a case in 1669 in which the court found a woman not guilty because they recognized that she was mentally ill. This also does come up a little bit in the witch trials of 1692 as well. So we see some cases of that. So in fact, Reverend John Hale, in his writings, acknowledged that sometimes mental illness could cause you to have hallucinations or sadness, which someone might mistake for being the act of a witch when it wasn't. So the Puritans were actually a bit more generous with the mentally ill than later generations. Some communities did make laws so that they could be provided for if their families could not provide for them themselves. They could also set up housing for them. Relatives did leave money for them in their wills and sometimes took care of their estates. I did include an example of this in my novel. Sarah's cousin, Stephen, actually took over his mother's estate because she was suffering from mental illness. So I did bring that up too in the book. So the Puritans, though, were actually a bit more compassionate than I thought they were when I started researching. It was more the later generations, like towards, the mid to late 1700s, where the mentally ill start getting treated a lot harsher. So I think, if anything, we could learn to be a bit more like the Puritans in terms of how compassionate they were for their mentally ill, because, there's still a bit of destigmatization that we need around it. So if you want to find out more, though, about mental illness in Puritan America, I have a whole blog post on it, which you can find in the description below. So feel free to read through that. I also include the sources that I researched too there. Also be sure to check out my other videos on my channel as well, and I'll see you in the next video.